It's the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Let's go to the Bumpy's Catering Hotline. Brandon Marcello joining us from CBS Sports and 247 Sports. And there's a lot of big storylines in college football that I want to talk about, just like where the playoffs are going, the SEC 9 games, yada, yada, yada. I know he was in Destin last week. But let's start off with A&M talk. Brandon, good morning, buddy.
Good morning. What's going on?
Hey, so where are you with A&M this year? And maybe where are you on A&M over the next couple years with Mike Elko being the man? Last year, so much promise up until November. We all know what happened after that. Just where are you right now on them?
I'm about where I was even back in January. Not much has changed. I still think they're probably going to be like maybe an 8-win team this year, maybe a 9-win team, depending on how everything breaks in the SEC this year. Some other teams I'm really high on. I like the talent that's returning. I do want to see a bit more depth, but I really like Mike Elko, the way he builds programs. I think by the time you get to year 3, year 4 at A&M, you're going to get a very good gauge on what you can expect from Mike Elko, even going into a year 6 or year 7, if you were to stay around that long at Texas A&M. Again, everybody wants to win championships and everything, but if you can just get yourself in the playoff and get hot at the right moment, that's what matters. And I know last year we didn't necessarily see that in the playoff, but I do think we did see it a little bit from Ohio State, even though they're the most talented roster in college football. Just the way they ended the season and then getting on a run and just blowing everybody out practically in the playoff, you're going to see some teams in this new era, especially as we get to 16 teams, that just get hot at the right time. And as long as you get in the playoff and you hit the right boxes there in December, you can make a run. And so I think fans in a lot of ways across college football, we're still kind of tweaking expectations, what we should be looking for in terms as a success. And a success moving forward, getting into the playoff, 9 or maybe 10 wins is going to be enough nowadays to get in. And if you get hot and you make it to the semifinals, that's an incredible run.
Brandon Olin Buchanan here. You said that you have some teams in the SEC that you are high on. I think almost everybody's always going to say Georgia, Alabama, Texas. Anybody else on your list that you're particularly high on, and why?
LSU to a certain extent, because they're just so talented going into this year. You got Garrett Nussmeier coming back at quarterback. I'm really kind of high on them. I'd be higher on Florida if they just didn't continue to have the schedule they had on the back half of the schedule. DJ Lagway, the big key for them is him staying healthy. When I see someone get hampered by a couple different injuries in one season at a skill position, fair or not, I automatically just go, well, they're probably going to be an injury-prone player for the rest of their career. And at some point, he's probably going to miss a game or two for Florida. I think he's dynamic. He could be one of the best 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the nation, but he's got to stay healthy to do so. And I think he's enough with that offensive line they've built around him that I think is really deep and really good for them. Florida could be a team that, they might win 8 games this year, but you put them in any other league, they may have won 10 or 11. Just based off of what Lagway can do and just how deep they are along that offensive line. So I'm kind of high on Florida, even though the record at the end of the season might not show it.
So we were in the previous segment kind of going through SEC quarterbacks, and I don't think the SEC has a quarterback problem, but they have a veteran problem at that spot, right? You look around the league, there's not a lot of experience. Nussmeier, you mentioned. There's others, Lenore Sellers, obviously. But so when you think about that, how wide open does that potentially make the SEC? Because we just don't know what Arch is going to be. We don't know what Jackson Arnold is going to be at Auburn. We don't know a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent. I also kind of have big wonder about Gunnar Stockton at Georgia. When we saw him in a couple of games last season, I think he's kind of a gamer and can be someone that can kind of grind his way to a win if he has to for Georgia. I think he's very much a guy who's willing to take the hits. I was there at the Sugar Bowl, and some of the throws he was even able to get off against that Notre Dame rush surprised me. So that kind of stacks up well for them, but I want to see that extended action week to week. And it goes along with your point of you just don't quite know what to expect from everybody week to week. And I know everybody's on the Arch Manning hype train. I'm on it as he's a great quarterback because I think we've seen enough of him in extended action to know that he's going to be a really, really good quarterback. But as you guys know, there's a difference between being a great quarterback and being an elite quarterback. An elite quarterback is great every single week. And we need to see that in a 3-week stretch, a 4-week stretch at Texas. But he's got enough weapons around him. And I think with Steve Sarkisian, he's finally going to be able to do some of the things in that offense he wants to do instead of just running screens all the time with Quinn Ewers, who I don't think, trusted as much as he should have as a passer. I mean, heck, even look at Arkansas. Taylon Green, a second-year starter in that offense. You know he's going to put up numbers, but does that mean that he's going to lead them to big wins? No, we didn't see it last year either. And I think there is a quarterback problem in the SEC as far as from the middle of the pack down. I mean, Kentucky has just had an absolute just like identity crisis offensively because they can't figure out their quarterback situation, and they keep going to the portal these last 3 years, hoping that'd be a quick fix. I wonder if that's going to be a situation maybe for Auburn. I mean, they're looking for a quick fix right now, and what their hope was that by this time in the Hugh Freeze era, year 3 or maybe even a year 4, they would have someone that would have grown up in their system and end up taking up as a starter. That hasn't happened. They had to go to the transfer portal again to get Jackson Arnold, who struggled at times there at OU. How's he going to do in a new system at Auburn? I think a lot of people think Auburn's going to be better this year, but just the idea that Hugh Freeze has had to go with transfer after transfer and switching up the starting quarterbacks at Auburn makes me worry just about the consistency there. Who's
the surprise team, do you think, or project could be in the SEC? You know, that team that's going to exceed expectations?
You know, it's hard to say as far as, because I hadn't even looked at win totals and all like that. And I think Florida's probably about where they should be when that, but I think they're going to still be one of the more talented teams, one of the maybe top 4 teams when you actually look at them on paper, but their schedule is just very difficult. I think a team that's actually going to be one that maybe a lot of people think was going to take a step back because he's gone was Nico Iamaleava. With him being gone from Tennessee, I think they're going to be just fine offensively with Joey Aguilar at quarterback. I don't think we're going to have a team in the SEC that just all of a sudden pops out of nowhere this year. I don't see it. Like someone jumping into the top 3 or top 4. I think it's boring to say, but the top 3 or top 4 in the SEC that everybody kind of just assumes, that's going to be your top 3 or 4 this year. And I think everybody else is going to be playing catch up.
Brandon, help us understand the latest with the House settlement. I know that Judge Wilkins yesterday proposed the order is going to extend the deadline, and I guess that means that there's going to be to give them enough time to kind of process the information and make sure that there's not other things that can pop up to derail it even more. But I feel like this has been delayed so long that who knows.
Yeah, it's anybody's guess right now. I was talking to some folks very close and actively involved in this House settlement. And there's so many lawyers involved. Their take on it was she's taking her time to write an order that approves the settlement and that is as appeal proof as possible. Something, because this is kind of something that's going to solidify her legacy. She's about to retire. Because if she denies the settlement, you can't appeal that, obviously. So the thinking and the hope among those is that she's just writing an order that's very strongly worded. She kind of dots her I's and dots her T's that makes this more appeal proof. But it's probably going to be appealed somehow, some way by someone. Someone's going to be suing someone anyway. It's anybody's guess. The hope was that this would be done within 2 weeks. We've obviously sailed by that. And here we are less than a month away from this being enacted, if it is passed and approved. And you've got athletic directors everywhere just kind of scrambling anyway. But, even if she doesn't approve this, I don't think it actually matters that much. You're going to see a lot of schools move ahead with this. Maybe not doing the roster limit stuff, but they're going to be paying the players anyway. They've been working with their states to get that stuff passed. So at this point, I think everybody's anxious about it, but I wouldn't be because I think college football is moving that direction anyway. A lot of schools are going to do that. The problem is this settlement would allow some guardrails to come in and allows the power conferences to set up their own organization to police things. That would have corralled a lot of issues and made it a little bit more simpler. That wouldn't happen if it's not approved. And I think that's what's most concerning to the athletic directors out there.
Brandon and Destin, a lot of talk from Greg Sankey about the playoff moving forward, and should the SEC, they obviously want 4 teams in, automatic bids, because in their mind they're playing such a more challenging conference schedule that that they want to get 4 teams in or don't want to move forward until they find out what's the strength of schedule component going to be in all this, deciding the field. What's your thoughts on that? Is the SEC grandstanding a little bit, or do they have a legitimate case?
I think that in a lot of ways, Greg Sankey is a victim of being a little bit too diplomatic, even within his own conference with his athletic directors. He's acting like a state representative. He's sitting there going, "What do you guys want? What do you ADs want? Tell me. I'm not really going to share my thoughts. You guys just tell me what you want." And the problem with that is that you get yourself into these type of situations where all of a sudden the tide changes a little bit, and it maybe makes you look like it as a commissioner that you're not necessarily telling them what to do, which can be a good thing. But listen, for 3 years now, we've been discussing where the SEC is going to go to 8 to 9 games. And I understand the issues and the challenges and all that, but they've been hemming and hawing for 3 years on this for various reasons. At first, it was obviously strength of schedule. Then it was like, are we going to get enough money if we go to 9 games from ESPN? And then now it's about college football playoff format. Maybe it's contingent on that. I think what not necessarily surprising, but the kind of thing that happened here was last week we went into the spring meetings knowing and reporting that the athletic directors in the SEC and the athletic directors in the Big Ten were on the same page. They wanted 4 automatic qualifiers in the new CFP. Well, the problem is that you get the coaches in a room. The coaches almost always, in a lot of ways, when it comes to what's happening on the field, are going to differ from their athletic directors. And so that happened. It was very public. They came out of that room. The coach was like, we don't want this. Let's put as many as we can in there. Let's go 5-11. Let's do all these to get rid of these automatic qualifiers. So it forces the ADs to have to listen to them as their constituents. And then, of course, they have Greg Sankey on the side, who's not necessarily voicing what he wants to everybody in the room among his athletic directors and presidents, going, okay, well, let's weigh this. Let's discuss all this. Because also remember, guys, everybody out there assumes that the Big Ten SEC can just throw down the throat of the rest of the conferences what we want. But maybe what the SEC really wants is not the 4AQ thing. They want to stuff the ballots, so to speak. They want to get as many teams in as possible. And the way to do that is by not having a lot of automatic qualifiers. But the ADs in the SEC say, let's do the 4AQs, because we do that, we get more money from potentially scheduling play-in playoff games and creating this new TV product. And that's something that, as an AD, helps keep your job, because you're getting more money into your school's pockets. So what you got here is a lot of just discussion. Everybody's going to have varying opinions, but the commissioner, Greg Sankey, for better or worse, is just not the type of guy that goes in that room and go, here's what I want, here's what we're going to do. This is what makes sense for the SEC. He's leaving it up to them, and he just provides the feedback whenever they need it. We're moving toward this not being a 4AQ system, because the tide has certainly shifted, and I think it's because not everybody's on the same page in the SEC, and you don't have a commissioner there that's telling everybody what to do. And for better or worse, that's just the way he is.
Hey, great stuff, Brandon. Appreciate your time, brother.